In this video, artists Judith Brown and Maggie Bauman share their experiences and insights from a workshop they attended by master artist Carl Purcell. Learn more about artists Judith Brown and Maggie Bauman at www.northsideartassociation.org.
What he would want is something very simple, so that if I was looking at this, say this is, Maggie, hold it. Hold that. Very, very basic. I've got a shape, an interesting shape up here in the corner. And then this group of trees makes a large shape with different variations. This is a madrone tree whose bark is yellow, creamy, and brown, and that's what fascinated me about that. And then the different rocks. So this is a shape, and this is a shape down here. So if I was going to go like this, and then another one like this, and then maybe my rocks, and then also I have the way the ripples go like that. And then in this, I might divide up in interesting ways or leave white spaces in here for the trees. Now, if I wanted to, I could get much more detailed and I could do a value study, but that's what I was looking for. I was looking, how can I break up something very complicated into shape? And then within that shape, Maggie's going to talk about how he does color. Yeah. And, the way he would use his color in that particular shape. Yeah.
I took that picture and just divided it up like that and stuck a couple people in it to fish. But I gave up after I got up here. I got that far. Putting it down further. Color, we started out with doing limbs. He was wanting it. His philosophy was not to mix the paint in the paint box or anything, but to he said, dip your paintbrush in a different color paint or a different part of paint every time you put it up on the canvas. So at one point we did some trees. These are really great trees. But just making you change your brush every time you put something else on there.
And the same within your sky, Maggie. He went from cool to warm to cool to warm in the watercolor.
This was not a good example of the sky, but just...
You did all those in that class.
We wetted our paper first, totally wetted it, well, and then stapled it, and then after it dried, we took it off and turned it over and painted on the front of it, so it was stretched. And this is just something I started. This is another one I started, and I'll pass these around and you can kind of see how he's going through the system. Remember that what you look at is opposite direction of what the final painting is, because you're looking in a mirror when you do all this. And when we were doing foliage, you can see him changing his colors down in here. And we practiced on sheets like that. That's, yeah.
What kind of paper is that?
It's 140 pound.
140?
Yeah.
Would he have you only wet one side of the paper or both sides?
We wet one side, and then if you're doing your wash, he would start out, with your sky and working down, and he keeps the bead on the water. Do you know what I mean by keeping the bead? And if it does dry out, and you get blooms, he said, wet it all over again and then start pulling it out from the middle to the outside and it will get rid of the blooms. Or
He might walk in loose, but he gets tighter in his finish.
He does, and you'll see he gets very tight with and he's more of a realistic painter, even I think.
I've only painted for this one.
Yeah, what do you think about that idea of the warm, cool, warm, cool? Do you like the look of it, or is it something that doesn't appeal to you? How about you, Sis?
Well, I think you'll find warm, cool in any color. If you're painting an all green painting,
Yeah, that's
you've
true.
got to have to show, like Ken Ferris's painting over there of Grace. If he didn't have that warm, cool coming at you, you wouldn't see a distance, or you wouldn't see that Grace.
That's true. That's true. That's the hardest thing. You know, you get your very wonderful sketch or whatever, but you have to decide. Say if you have a black and white photo, you have to decide what your palette's going to be, and that's challenging. I mean, I think it is. I mean, you know, what colors are you going to use?
Yeah, I know when I painted down at Clayton, I had never used that palette of colors, and it blew me away working with it. I'm going, oh my God, you know, and I'm painting.
It does that. I know. I like this Fred Graff's palette. Whenever I take a course, I'll buy those guys the colors like a dummy, and then I put right on it the Fred Graff palette. Well, I liked his palette because the colors were very transparent, and I use that a lot. But when I switch over to another palette, I'm not, you know, gee, if I blend this with this, I'm not as comfortable with it. I'm not
Well,
as
they like to kind of push their palettes because they're getting their paint from a dealer, and they like for them to sell their palette.
Yeah, they do. They do want to sell it.
Or they say anything that is a water-based paint, like the Watercolor Society is accepting acrylic, gouache, so it's all water-based.
Has all the blooms there, and you just leave it in there?
Yeah, that's what I was going
What
to
do you
say.
guys with them?
Yeah, he did have a lot of blooms,
But it's because it's
but he
an old
works
wall.
them in.
The blooms because it's an old wall, like an old brick wall, so it.
Now, I don't remember seeing that foliage on the side on his picture. Maggie, you said you saw he had something, or he's just throwing that in?
I think he just threw that in.
He threw
It's
it
got
in
something on the picture,
for
but it
texture or
doesn't
something.
have that red flower on it.
Yeah, on the side. Another thing I thought was very interesting about him is he used a lot of musical analogies about, you know, music compared to what he was doing. And one of the days that I have one, was he wanted us to work on movement. How can you show movement in your painting? And so we gave us
Turn music on and have you paint the music?
we didn't paint to music, but he wanted to see something, you know, lines that were suggested, not static, not vertical, you know, things.
Dancing.
Yes, that was one of the things he described, you know, along the bottom, you know, movement.
His wife is what is she with music?
Was she a
piano.
musician?
Oh yeah, she's a musician, and that's what he called it. He talked a lot about music.
Yes, and I would say this, you know, lines like this one. That's what I was trying to do with this.
He'd say these are the tubas, and these
Right.
are the
Now, who drew that?
flutes. And
Pardon me?
Is that your drawing?
Yes. Yeah, it was believe me, I left a lot out. This was a very complicated photo he showed
Oh,
me.
you drew that from the photo.
I did it from his photo, but I tried to. In fact, he probably would think that I put too much stuff. Yeah, I would think that. Yeah. But we were getting. I mean, there was a lot of stuff in there. Now, he mentions about getting black, and do you remember, it was
I
sometimes...
wish he were talking here so we would know what he's.
Yeah. It was one of the blues with, the red.
With the alizarin and
Yeah, the
palette,
alizarin. And,
those two.
as he mentions, he doesn't have any black in his palette.
That makes a really good.
Yeah, because it's more transparent. And whenever you add an actual black, it's very flat and doesn't have any life.
If you want to borrow a tape, Jerry, we can let you listen to it. We actually, when we were watching it, we speeded it up
Yeah.
because we didn't have enough time to show the tape. The tape is about an hour and a half long.
He does the entire.
But we just wanted you to see that so that it would be finished. You would see the finished product. But he, you could see the deep reds and the blues in that very, very dark.
Judge of the watercolor show. Now, don't you think he's going to kind of lean towards the loose painter?
No, I don't. And he judges before we ever take the class. So if he doesn't pick us, we have a chance to grab him and pinch him.
Oh, he is going to judge.
He judges first, and then he teaches the class.
Oh, well, it's been the opposite before.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think y'all.
Christopher Shank taught the class and then judged.
Oh, did he? Well, that's unusual. I think mostly they do it the other way. I wonder what was going to happen to this face, because when he laid the one color in, I thought, how's he going to do that? But he did okay. Do you see how he added the dark, and now he's very subtly laying in
the brick, yeah.
Yeah. And Maggie, after he finished, Maggie bought one of his paintings, and she'll show you.
I'll show you the painting.
Yeah, but he's almost finished with this, and but he's just suggesting bricks. And every medium has its unique qualities. And, watercolor is fresh and free. And sometimes I don't understand when people want to take a palette knife and do a palette knife with watercolor. Well, that's not the unique quality about it.
I don't know that I've ever seen anyone take a palette.
Well, somebody took a class with...
I can see how you could get a line real nice with a palette.
And he's putting some shadows and some smaller...
That's pretty cool to watch it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I thought we were going to watch the whole thing that way, but...
Yeah, and he's putting in his detail last with his pointy brush. He showed us how to hold that pointy brush, and we practiced holding it holding it a certain way, very perpendicular.
We were doing that on those tree limbs.
Yeah.
Like a Chinese texture.
I have copies of the book that you gave us. I have about 5 or 6 copies up here that I think Amy's going to send them out on the internet. But our book is in color, and I reproduced it not in color. If anybody wants a book like this in color, it's like 40 cents a page for the color. So I didn't do that until I knew somebody wanted some. If you want to see how he's working with color.
How long did he spend on this painting? 2 hours, 3?
No, I think it was about an hour and a half.
Do you see how your eye travels through the darks?
Yeah, right.
He also had his sketches
And the
stuff on
lights.
there before he started.
He also had what?
He had his sketches.
It's kind of hard to distinguish which is his focal point. The sheets are the lady. Yeah, the sheets are white, the lady.
And he uses that.
Yeah, usually the lightest light and the darkest dark is your center of interest.
I like to do that. I like to do that, and it's like.
Well, it's almost like this stands out more than this, but your eye goes between the two.
But that's what I mean.
Yeah.
To me, that sheet is the focal point rather than her.
Yeah, I think because it's so much lighter and larger.
Unless he does something.
Yeah.
How much was he selling his paintings for?
What's he selling them for?
No, how much?
Well, it wasn't cheap, I'm sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was nice.
Northside Art Association is a nonprofit arts organization focused in Florissant, Missouri that serves local artists through community exposure, networking, education, and peer interaction.